what I want to do is I want to take freaking, like, RC20 lantern level rulings into YGO Omega and see how good this simulator is with its rulings. I want to see if this simulator can get the rulings correctly. Therefore, I am going to be setting up some freaking crazy ass scenarios, and we're going to be testing those in YGO Omega to see how well YGO Omega handles really complicated and insanely overpowered rulings. Darkness Metal, the Dragon of Dark Steel, has an effect that says you can target one of your monsters as banished in your graveyard, special summon it to your zone discard points to in defense position, but its effects are negated. Also, you cannot special summon Link monster for the rest of this turn, and the summoned monster is placed on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. That is the interesting part, is the fact that it says the monster summoned is returned to the bottom of the deck if it leaves the field. Now, the COCKADOODLEDOO has the effect that says if this face-up card would leave the field, banish it instead. And we are going to be tribute summoning Fantastic STRIBORG over the COCKADOODLEDOO. Now, Fantastic STRIBORG says monsters tributed for the face-up tribute summon of this card are returned to the hand instead of going to the graveyard. So, we have a card that says that the COCKADOODLEDOO will be returned to the bottom of the deck. We have COCKADOODLEDOO saying that it will be banished. And then we have Fantastic STRIBORG saying that the COCKADOODLEDOO will return to the hand. So, we've summoned the COCKADOODLEDOO with the Darkness Metal. We are going to normal summon the Fantastic STRIBORG, tributing over the COCKADOODLEDOO, and we will see where the COCKADOODLEDOO is going to go. So let's see if YGO Omega gets this right. Chat, ladies and gentlemen, YGO Omega got the ruling wrong. It got the ruling incorrectly. It returned the COCKADOODLEDOO to the bottom of the deck. However, the COCKADOODLEDOO is meant to get banished because when you take into consideration all these cards that have different conflicting restrictions on a card, the card in question, the card that will affect itself, takes precedence over other restrictions. So because the COCKADOODLEDOO, it's its own restriction that says that it should be banished by if it leaves the field, it should get banished rather than returned to the bottom of the deck by the restriction placed by the Darkness Metal. So the COCKADOODLEDOO in this situation should have gotten banished rather than returned to the bottom of the deck. So there you go. For the first time today, we have an incorrect ruling by YGO Omega. The ruling in question here, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have a binary sorceress on the field. Now, what's important about binary sorceress is that she is a Cybers Link monster with 1600 attack. The reason why this is relevant is because in the graveyard, we have Thunderhand, which has the effect that if a monster you control with 1600 original attack or defense is destroyed by an opponent's battle or card effect, it can summon itself from the hand or the graveyard, as well as Salvagent Driver, who also has the effect that if a Cybers Link monster you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while it's in your hand or graveyard, it can summon itself from the hand or in the graveyard. Now, I'm going to have Alan put a card on the field so that we meet the activation requirement for both Thunderhand and Salvagent Driver, and then Raigeki, my binary sorceress, to see whether or not YGO Omega allows us to trigger both effects, or if it allows us to only trigger one or the other. So go ahead, Alan. You can go ahead and normal summon a monster and activate Raigeki for me. Let's see how this works out. Alright. Raigeki is destroyed. Chain to Raigeki, activating a trigger effect. Yes, okay. I will attempt to activate the Thunderhand. Will it allow me to activate Salvagent Driver? It will not. Okay, okay. Very, very interesting. That's very cool. So YGO Omega knows that if there are two trigger effects that meet their activation requirement at the same time, but are both trigger effects that can summon from the hand, even though they can also summon from the graveyard, YGO Omega knows that you can only activate one or the other. You cannot activate both. Now, the ruling here is going to be a very interesting one, okay? I'm going to be setting 7 colored fish, and then once I proceed to the end phase, I'm going to be discarding Graph for hand size limit, and with the Graph's effect, I will be summoning the Seer, which will be destroyed because I control a face down monster, meaning that it is not a Burning Abyss monster. Now, what I want to test is if Seer is summoned by Graph after discarding for hand size limit, will the seer be able to trigger in order to summon back the graph from the graveyard? Now, we'll give this a try. We'll discard the graph for hand size limit. We will use the effect summoning the seer in face-up defense position. Seer should be destroyed. Will the seer be able to activate? And it can. YGO Omega is allowing the seer, male branch of the Burning Abyss, to trigger. But that is not the correct ruling. That is not the correct ruling. Now, let me pull up the source for you guys on this one because I know you guys are going to want it. So, the source for this is right here. This comes officially from the OCG database. Now, it says, when discarding from my hand size limit during the end phase, graph is sent from my hand to the graveyard. In the situation, can I activate the effect of graph, male branch of the Burning Abyss? And the answer to this, official from Konami's OCG rulings database, is even if you discard graph, male branch of the Burning Abyss for your hand size limit during the end phase, you can still activate its effect. As an example, if you were to special summon Seer, male branch of the Burning Abyss by that effect, while you have a monster other than a Burning Abyss monster on your field, Seer, male branch of the Burning Abyss will be destroyed immediately by its own effect, but you would not be able to activate its effect that special summons a Burning Abyss monster from your graveyard. This is an official ruling from the official Konami OCG database, and YGO Omega got it wrong. The current situation that we have here is I have a face-up ALEISTER the Invoker and a face-down ALEISTER the Invoker. My opponent here, Alan, is going to activate There Can Be Only One. You can flip it now, Alan, if you wish. So There Can Be Only One is currently face-up on the field. So what There Can Be Only One does is that both players can only control one monster of each different type. So you can't have two monsters of the same type. Now, if my opponent with his Vorse Raider attacks into my face down ALEISTER, what should happen is that the ALEISTER is immediately sent to the graveyard after damage calculation is performed. So the Vorse Raider should not destroy the ALEISTER the Invoker by battle. Now, the question that I want to test is whether or not the game will allow my ALEISTER the Invoker that was flipped face up to add invocation, because ALEISTER reads if this card is normal summoned or flipped face up, you can add one invocation from your deck to your hand. So I want to see if the fact that There Can Be Only One is on field and that it sends the ALEISTER before it is destroyed by battle, I want to see if YGO Omega allows ALEISTER the Invoker to meet its activation timing in order to add invocation. So go ahead, attack with your Vorse Raider into my face down ALEISTER, and we'll see what YGO Omega has to say. Gets flipped. I send that ALEISTER. Wait, it gave me the choice? Wait a minute. Let's test this again. Wait a minute. I might have... Okay, so it didn't allow the ALEISTER to activate. However, this is a very interesting scenario. This is a very interesting... I might have secretly found an issue that I wasn't looking for. Okay, let's have a look. Go ahead and punch it to my face down ALEISTER. I'm going to see if it allows me to choose the currently face up ALEISTER. Just don't forget to activate There Can Be Only One first. I want to see if it allows me to send the currently face up ALEISTER, because that is not what's supposed to happen. It's letting me send the face up ALEISTER that I controlled. It is not supposed to allow you to choose. Cards like There Can Be Only One, cards like Goes in Match, cards like Rivalry of Warlords are supposed to immediately send the newest monster that is not legally allowed to be on the field per its restriction. So it should not allow the ALEISTER the Invoker that was currently face up to be the one sent to the graveyard. This is really interesting. It's very interesting because I was looking for whether or not it allowed my ALEISTER to activate if it was the one sent by There Can Be Only One, which they got correct. They got that one correct. However, they did not get correct that the ALEISTER that is face down is the one that's supposed to be immediately sent. That's very interesting. So while testing one ruling and figuring out that they did get it right, I found another ruling that they got incorrectly. Okay. Very interesting. I have a Don Zalug, who has the effect that when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can activate one of these effects, discard a random card from their hand. That's the effect we're going to be using. My opponent controls a Giant Rat, which has the effect that when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon an Earth monster with 1500 less attack from your deck in attack position. So the question that I have here, my opponent in his hand has a card called Neko Main King, which I will read to you the second I discard it off of the Donzalug. But basically what Neko Main King does is that if Neko Main King is discarded by an opponent's card effect, it becomes the end phase of the turn. Now the issue is that the Donzalug is going to inflict damage and resolve its effect to discard a card before destroying the giant rat by battle. So the question that I am going to have here is, if Donzalug attacks over giant rat, discards Neko Main King, at which point does giant rat activate, if at all, and at the point in which it activates, can I Ash Blossom it? Because we know that Ash Blossom cannot be used in the damage step, which is the point at which Giant Rat would activate. So we are going to test this theory right now and see how it plays out. So we're going to attack the Giant Rat, and we are going to inflict battle damage. We are going to use the effect of Donzalug to discard a random card for the opponent's hand. Neko Main King will activate its effect, Resolve. Giant Rat will activate. Can we Ash Blossom here? We cannot! They got the ruling wrong, chat. They got the ruling incorrectly. That is not the correct ruling. The correct way that this should be ruled is that the Neko Main King is discarded via the effect of Donzalug. Neko Main King activates and resolves after damage calculation before the giant rat would be destroyed by battle. So the giant rat is considered to be destroyed by battle in the end phase, at which point when the giant rat activates, you could activate the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So we're going to try this again. I am currently turning on All Chain, attacking with Donzalug into the giant rat, and no effect is going to be activated here. I'm going to beat over it. Okay. Attack over it. No, nothing in the damage step. Deal damage. No, nothing before damage calculation. Nothing during damage calculation. Donzalug activates. Discard a card. Nothing chained to Donzalug. Neko Main King, chain link 1. Nothing can be changed here. Neko Main King resolves. Okay. Neko Main King resolves. Giant Rat will be destroyed here by battle.
Okay, no effect.
Giant Rat is destroyed by battle here. Giant Rat, chained to Giant Rat. It's not allowing me to activate the Ash Blossom. And it's placing Giant Rat as chain link 1 in the battle phase still. It is making Giant Rat chain link 1 in the battle phase. It is still the battle phase, even though Neko Main King has already resolved. So this just goes to show that it either is an issue with Neko Main King not properly putting you in the end phase, or that is probably the issue because the game is still recognizing that you are in the damage step, whereas you are supposed to be in the end phase by this point, and it is in the end phase that the giant rat is supposed to be destroyed. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So I'm supposed to be able to Ash Blossom here, but I cannot. It says that I'm still in the battle phase. Interesting. So the giant rat resolves in the battle phase. It resolves in the battle phase, and then it moves me to the end phase. That's not how it's supposed to work. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed. This was part 1. Stay tuned for a sneak preview of what you're going to see in part 2. Just want to remind you guys that this is the YGO Omega closed beta. We don't have a release date yet for the open beta or for the official release of the game. However, if you do want to try to check it out, join YGO Omega's Discord server. I will leave the link in the description below. So here's a sneak preview of part 2. During this turn, Player A previously activated Security Block. Player B previously activated Rainbow Life. Player A controls 2 copies of Naturia Mosquito, 1 equipped with Rod of the Mind's Eye. Player B controls a defense position, Stone Statue of the Aztecs, and Canyon. If Player A uses the Naturia Mosquito equipped with Rod of the Mind's Eye to attack into Player B's defense position, Stone Statue of the Aztec, what happens? We are going to test this ruling.